I know you and a couple folks have been working on this project, Compare My Offer, for a couple of years now, I think it's been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know you have been kind of doing that a little bit, and you can probably correct me where I'm wrong, where you're kind of building it, but then also using it and having just that super quick feedback loop. So I probably messed up that story a little bit. So maybe correct me where I'm wrong, and then love to kind of hear where you're at in that project and how you're thinking about it right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that started a few years back. The product was actually built as a spin-off by the original Finmo developers.
Hmm. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of thrown it at us and said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And like a group of us were like, "Oh my God, this is incredible." And we were using it.
Yeah.
And they didn't ever push it. They had a couple lenders that they were trying to partner with. So like we would have some of our lender reps, come to us be like, "Oh, hey, like, do you want to try this?" I'm like, we're already using it, but anyone else who hadn't used it yet, they're like, "I don't know what this is." And so honestly, it was just us using it for a while, and we kept going back to the guys, be like, "Hey, like, can you add this? Can you add this? This needs to change or this needs." And finally, one day they were just like, "Look, like, we are very focused on, the rollout of Finmo right now and getting that to a spot that it needs to be. If you guys want to make improvements to this, why don't you just buy it off us?" And so we bought it off them and we made the changes and updates that we wanted to. And we've made some other ones since, got it to a really good spot. And we just kind of kept it to ourselves for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
We've been chatting about it for at least 2 years. I remember at the conference 2 years ago we were chatting about it. So
yeah.
yeah.
And then, we were getting some people that were asking if they can use it. And so finally we just said, okay, we'll open it up. And so, yeah, we opened up and we have a number of different users now. And we're in a spot where we're like, we're using it. We're also kind of maintaining it and running it. But, we're also not pushing it. We're not out there flogging it or selling it. And we're not, setting up booths at conferences or anything. It's all kind of just word of mouth and it's been
Organic.
great. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're just kind of talking like, what's next for it? Is it at a point where, we need someone to come on and kind of take it to that next level? And that may be the case. But those of us who use it, like, we use it for every single one of our pre-approvals.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does a phenomenal job. And it's just another one of those pieces of the process that separates you from others, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, I guess, going back to kind of what we were talking about before. So is my hypothesis true? Maybe you'll prove me wrong here, but when it was the scenario where it was you guys trying to kind of more so like maybe beta testing, I don't know if that's the right way to do it, and you were kind of giving feedback to the developers, and then you transitioned to just kind of owning the product, and then, it was you guys giving the feedback and implementing the feedback. Like, was that a quicker cycle?
It was pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, part of it is because we'd all kind of already known the improvements that we wanted to make to it.
Mm,
And so as soon as we took it over, it was just like we were lucky enough that we were able to keep on one of the developers on contract. And so just like, here's our list of things, like, go to town. So
just go. Right.
yeah.
Because I guess it's also not just speed, but it's prioritization too, I guess. I mean, I never thought of it that way to say, the priorities of the tech company might be different than the priorities of you as a broker. And I know we run into that all the time where we say, okay, like, this is a cool feature, but it'll take us 6 months to build. And is that going to get us, selfishly, maybe more blue mortgage licenses, right? And so
Yep.
there's that trade-off that the tech company needs to make, but then that might be a slightly different equation that the broker needs to make. And ideally, those equations are similar, they'll never be
hmm
identical. But yeah,
hmm
again, if you're on both sides of the fence, that equation does become identical and there's no
Yeah.
trade-offs or less trade-offs to be made, I guess.
Yeah, which is great because we're kind of beta testing it every day, I guess you could say. And
Yeah.
and so we kind of know what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done.
Hmm.
It's in a spot where like updates and improvements that we make now, like, they're quite minor.
Yeah.
It doesn't take them long to make those changes, which is nice. Like, all the heavy lifting's been done. So it's
Good.
really just maintaining and upkeep and improving little things here and there. So
Good. Yeah.
hmm
Well, I guess that brings us to so kind of where you're at now. You're thinking about, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you just said where you're saying, okay, do we bring someone in? It's been organic and up until now, word of mouth, people interested. I know people I've talked to have really been excited about this tool, independent, not with you even in the room. They've been
yeah.
saying that to me separately. So thinking about, okay, do we take it to that next level? Pretty confident in the product, but to do that, do we need to bring in someone? I think it's a really interesting thing. I was talking to Ryan Wiley a couple weeks ago, I guess maybe a month ago, and he kind of, as he puts it, when a broker tries to take the product as you guys have and then try to make it this nationwide phenomena. He says, I can see the train wreck coming a mile away. Then it becomes honestly that juggling act that I just described, the prioritization, but it's internal, right?
Yep.
Which is not good for either sides, right? At the very least, when you have kind of that separation, church and state, yeah, those interests might not be aligned, but there's not this internal conflict. But I mean, I think that can happen. So I mean, is that kind of your thought process with that? Like, if you tomorrow were like, I want to take this nationwide or whatever, like, do you feel that you could do it yourself, or you feel like, no, we absolutely need someone
No, like,
to, yeah,
those of us who own it, like we all have our own brokerages, which are quite successful in their own right. And so that's everyone's, main bread and butter and focus, right? And I don't think there's anyone there that wants to be like, hey, like, I want to go ahead and be like the
the
face of
guy,
this new tech company and like
yeah,
and
yeah,
start this from the ground up. We're in a good place where, like I said, it's like very low maintenance. The users who are using it use it regularly and often, and they quite like it. We get some requests for some upgrades or updates every now and then, and those are pretty easy to make.
hmm,
So it's like pretty easy to maintain right now. Yeah, so if it was one of those things where like, we need to take this nationwide type
to the
thing.
streets,
I
yeah,
mean, it already is
yeah.
nationwide. We have users in Ontario
There you
from,
go,
right across the coast. So
already there, yeah,
exactly. But, in terms of growing, like, I mean, you're not gonna become like a behemoth just by word of mouth, right? So, we definitely need someone to
hmm,
step in who had those capabilities and that time and whatever, if that's where we wanted to go. So we've talked about it and we're always kind of chatting as a group and trying to figure out, what's next. We just
yeah,
keep it moving along as is, or do you take it to another level? So pros and
yeah.
cons to both, right? So
No, yeah. Well, Brian puts it, we've seen the train wreck. We've definitely seen
yeah,
that. But we've
yeah,
also seen the other way where people do bring in someone, and I guess for what it's worth, it's just way more successful because it's the prioritization, but it's also like when it's just yourself and you're the main user of the product and the people using it are people that you know and trust, that's one thing. But then, yeah, to be a tech company, okay, yeah, you need a sales and marketing team, right? You need a customer success team. You need a product manager, right? And okay, maybe the same person can wear multiple hats, but these are all functions that you kind of need to think of, right? You don't really need that if it's, hey, more your trusted group of people. I think that's kind of where it's at now. But
yeah.
okay, if we wanted to go to the masses, those are all things you need, right? Because you need to be able to turn around and say, okay, this is how we're going to serve our customers. Or here's our product roadmap, and
hmm
how do I do that? And
Yeah, and between the group of us right now, like we're able to, share duties and, serve the customers. If we wanted to scale and multiply those numbers, we'd need some help for sure.
yeah,